We're live. We are
We
live.
we are live. Hello, Ian. How are you? Dare I ask? And I only say that because you're the one that came up with this topic today. So getting unstuck. So I'm fascinated to hear what this is about.
Because I'm stuck. I'm the guy with this. Yeah, I showed you the little, I sent you the gift the other day with the guy in the mud and he pulls it out. Actually, the gift that I was going to send was a guy jumping into quicksand and he can't get out. So it got kind of morbid real fast and I wasn't sure if that was over the top. It's
Yeah,
not
trying to
that bad.
drag the leg out was a little bit easier, wasn't it? Yep. Yep.
So I'm
Totally.
stuck, but I'm not stuck so far deep that I can't get out. It's just, it's kind of like a funk.
Okay. Awesome. Well, do
So,
share some more.
so it's kind of like a general apathy is not the word. Maybe it just is stuck, right? So like uninspired. I don't feel like I'm moving in any direction at all. Some of my projects have finished up, and I'm kind of at a new plateau, and I don't know where to go. So yeah, I kind of feel like I'm a little aimless at the moment.
Okay. And
And I just thought it might be valuable for other people to hear that it's okay that we get to these spots where we don't necessarily know what's next. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk through kind of where I'm at so people
yeah,
can
yeah.
relate. And then some typical ways that I usually go through to get there. And I've started doing some of those things, but I haven't really totally immersed myself in those things to be able to really get out of the muck that I'm in.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've used in the past when I get to that feel of feeling stuck and it's not so much stuck, it's just where am I going? It's like you've started the car and you've got to the end of the street and then you go, I don't know which way to go. I don't know. I'm just sitting here. The car is running, but it's in neutral. You don't even know if you put it in first yet. Like it's just sitting in neutral. When I get to those points, I know that the thing that I do the most is I actually accept that that's where I'm at. And until I fully accept it, I can't move it because I don't accept that it's in neutral. So I'm
Mm.
assuming I'm supposed to be doing something else. So if I use the manual car analogy, I might already feel like I'm in first or second. So I'm trying to move it to third. But we all know that if we're in neutral, well, we're not going to go very far if we try to put it into third and accelerate.
I'm going to continue with this metaphor because what it feels like right now is that I'm trying to push the car. Like I've gotten out and I'm like, I'm going to make something happen, even though I don't know where to go or that it might be easier to actually get in the car and push the pedals. So I'm pushing a car and I'm
Pushing the
realizing that
car.
I'm not, it's not going anywhere. So why am I putting all this effort into pushing when I don't know exactly what direction I want to go?
Yeah, and sometimes it's just that you need to be out of the car and let the car sit there and you go and sit on the side of the road for a bit, take a break for half an hour in that analogy.
But I think that's where I'm at now. Like I realized over the last couple of days that okay, I'm trying to make something happen that's just not there yet. So I've had moments like this in the past, and even just going through that reflection period where I'm like, I've been there before, I've been inspired before, I've done stuff, but I don't have to try to make something happen like manufacture something that's not there.
Yeah, and we're really encouraged whenever it comes to entrepreneurial type of mindset, there's
The
this,
hustle and the grind,
yeah,
got to
that
make it happen, that hard work.
what's the next thing that's coming out? 2022 is just around the corner. What are you getting on? What are you offering your
Oh, don't
clients?
add layers. Don't add layers. I didn't need more. I don't need to push the truck and the car.
Exactly. Um, and but there's this almost this greater consciousness of push to do that, and
Yeah.
it puts a lot of pressure on and makes, well, it's made me second guess whether I'm achieving enough or am I offering enough, or I've often seen people offer program up and there doesn't seem to be any substance in it because they've just come up with it rather than the way I'd prefer to see it, which is, okay, this is this is actually substantial and this is sustainable and here it is. But I often see that there's this new thing. Oh, I'm doing a 5-day challenge. Oh, there's something else. And it just keeps piling out. It's like a conveyor belt of ideas that keep throwing out. But what I find happens if that occurs, I'm going to go back to our analogy of the car. You can't push it anywhere because you're just going from one side of the car to the other side of the car and then onto the top of the car and underneath the car to try and get it to move. But you're just throwing stuff at it and you're not realizing that if you just sat, got back in the car and just made a decision about where you want to go rather than getting caught up in and it's really subtle, but what others are kind of doing or what they appear to be offering and working for them. And then we want to try and make that work for us.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm exactly there where I'm trying to maybe mimic what other people are putting out there, because I definitely have an aversion to a lot of the marketing tactics that are currently out there. So I know I need to find my way, whatever that is, and I know clarity will shine light on direction.
If it doesn't take away from that outside influence that's really subtle to actually...
Well, maybe that's part of it, right? Like I have to be doing something, but I don't know what that thing is yet.
Yeah, so just that's why I come back to the accepting that you're just in neutral at the moment. The neutral space is actually a bit of an advantage when we just accept it.
Tell me about the neutral zone. I'd love to hear about this.
Well, the neutral is, many different, it gets expressed many different ways, but it's finding the nothing space. So it's like, it doesn't matter if something changes. You're kind of in the neutral. Oh, well, that's okay. There's nothing too exciting happening and there's nothing dramatic happening. And what happens in that space is you can really tune into what intuitively feels right. Mm-hmm. But only when we're not trying to get out of it. It's like if we're busy trying to get out of something, we're not enjoying the moment that we're in. So if we're busy getting to the end of our holiday, we're not enjoying the holiday. Or we're busy getting to the end of the week so we can have our weekend. We forget to enjoy the moments of the week.
Yeah.
And that neutral space is a bit like that. We feel like regularly, I do experience this. I haven't experienced it lately, but I definitely have, where you kind of feel like I fill the gap. Actually, I can't say it didn't happen recently. I literally an hour ago got a message to say the workshop you're going to do on Monday is now being postponed. So I blocked out my entire Monday. Now that means that I go, okay, I don't know what I'm doing on Monday now. So when I'm in a neutral space, I can go, do I fill it? Or do I just leave it and let's see what appears? Now, my initial reaction is to fill it. That means take off that event, open it up to clients with this subtle justification that says, oh, well, if somebody needs that time and space, then that'll be filled. And if they don't, then that's okay. But that's a justification of me filling that gap. And that's what I mean by a subtlety. We justify that that's okay, where I'm just sitting with that at the moment. I'm leaving that event. My Monday's still blocked out. And I'm just going to sit with it for a while. Might be till Saturday afternoon until I go, I don't know, or it might be till Sunday afternoon. And by the time it gets to that, no one can book in anything on that Monday because I have on my calendar. It goes, you can only book it 24 hours within a 24-hour window. So it's like, do we fill that space? And what are we trying to, why are we filling it?
Yeah. Why?
And we can't ask the why if we're busy trying to get out of the neutral space.
Yeah.
Because we're busy getting out of it. So we're not accepting that we're in there. We're in that place. Now, when I get into that neutral space, I always have more creative ideas. Now, I don't know if that's just a me thing, because it could be. There are other people that come up with creative ideas just all the time. I need to go into a really neutral space to actually get the idea. So for me, it's been about working out how I can use that neutral space. And it's not always about what is where I'm running off to. It's actually about, okay, I'm just in that space. What's appearing?
Yeah. I was recommended to do basically anything other than the work.
Right. See, get out of the car, sit on the side of the road.
Not focus on it. Right. And this is something that I've talked about with many people about if you focus on the problem, you just get more of the same. You get more of the problem. You can't get to the answer based on focusing on the problem. And I'm not talking about avoidance per se, but getting yourself into a better state, a better mental, emotional, and spiritual space. And for me to be creative, well, go do something that's creative. Go have fun. Like, what do I want to experience in that moment, and try to create it in a different way, in a different space that isn't focused on the work. So
it can be tricky. It can be tricky though, because you're getting focused on the work. So how do you pull yourself out and do that other thing?
But what I'm getting at is we've talked about goals in the past, where I don't necessarily focus on the end result that I'm looking for, but how do I want to feel when I get there? So if I can do something that is creative, but in a different venue where I'm able to be creative and be in the moment and play and have whatever the experience that I want to have in the work zone, joy, fun, playfulness, whatever, then if I can get into that zone and just be there and be present to that, then the opportunity for new things to show up and for me to have inspiration are possible.
Yeah, right.
So I created a zone over there in the playroom to do some painting. So I'm curious to see what comes of that. So I kind of made this splash proof zone. It looks a little bit like a horror movie because I've plasticized. So you can
splatter the blood and stuff across everywhere.
Well, that's not what I'm not doing that.
You said horror movie.
Well, if you've ever seen the show Dexter, he plasticized the room.
I love Dexter.
That
probably reveals a lot.
By the way, apparently, yeah. I don't watch it anymore. I'm not into it anymore. But that's kind of what that zone looks like. It's a splatter zone, but it's ready for the victim. It's not. It's it's not.
Hasn't arrived yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So isn't that interesting? So so I think there's some really cool messages here. One is that go and create the space of how you want to feel, because that's that's ultimately engaging that energy and bringing that energy in and injecting that energy so that you can do more of that.
Yeah.
I find I almost have to do the opposite because I have a tendency to busy myself. So the more I can just go, okay, I've got 2 hours and it's okay. Allowing that allows for more to show up because I'm not distracting myself for being still and being calm and being all of those things that I actually love to be, yet I will easily justify doing a lot of activity, which is not the calm and the still. So yeah, there's really different approaches, isn't there? And I'm sure that there's 3 or 4 more approaches that people can take.
I think it's all about finding yours, right? It's about finding the ways that work for you, and not every way is going to work every time. It's kind of like I've tricked myself before. I know I can do it. So it's kind of like you mind screw yourself. You're like, yeah. I know that one. That's not going to work for me this time. I know that one. I know how it plays out. This is a new kind of experience that I'm going to play with. So I'm I'm kind of hoping that just by letting go and being in that space, that it will allow some fluidity of, thoughts and ideas and things to happen while I'm not really thinking about it.
And not focused. Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, that is a really cool approach. It is something, like you say, getting a distraction away from the problem so we stop focusing on the problem is absolutely key. We just have to find ways to inject a different energy. I had someone recently who was getting really, and so this would be a story of being stuck. Every circumstance that appears in their world, they seem to be angry about.
Mm.
Now, they're fairly intuitive and fairly insightful and recognizes that every situation they put themselves in, the anger just rises to the surface. And so we did an intentional practice of seeing that circumstance with love, to just change what the focus was. Now, it's not the same version of stuck that you're talking about, but I think it's something that we can get into a habit of reacting in the same way or responding to something, and we just default those, oh yeah, see, that circumstance has happened, I'm going to get frustrated. And how do we get unstuck out of those things?
I think you're onto something, because being able to appreciate where you are is a great switch for where you are. And if I was sitting in appreciation for the moment that I'm in, I could think of all kinds of things that are way better off than they were in past circumstances to when I was stuck. Like if I think work-wise and whatever, like things are way better off than they were a few years ago, where I would have been panicky when I had a lull in the business, versus now I'm like, I have a lull, but I'm not freaking out. Like I don't have a zillion bills that need to be paid. I don't have, and there's just more that I know things are working out. Things are moving in the right direction. I'm not stressed about the future the way I would have been. So, and I can appreciate the stillness. I can appreciate having a few more moments with my kids, as you saw a few minutes ago. We're just, you've got family things to take care of, and it's okay. And it's not a bad thing. And you can kind of roll with the punches a little easier. So that appreciation is super helpful, I think.
Yeah. And I find also, as soon as we can appreciate it, we actually move on from it. So we're not so desperate to get out of it. We just find our way out of it almost magically. So by the time I'm going to go back to our analogy of the car. So you're sitting on the side of the road. Well, someone's more likely to come and help.
It's funny. You just reminded me of a story when, how old was I? Maybe, I don't know, maybe 13 or 14 years old. We had driven we went to a baseball game in Detroit City in the US, which is about an hour and a half from where we were. And we enjoyed the baseball game, came back to the car, and the car was open, but we had no keys. And Detroit's kind of not the nicest city to be stuck in when you don't have, you don't know the area. Anyways, it's not the best area of town. Anyways, I ran back in the stadium. Somehow I convinced security to go back to the seats and look, and I'm turning over nacho dip and all kinds of stuff looking for keys. Don't find anything, run back to the car. And in our we're almost at we basically had just surrendered to, I guess we're stuck and we need help. And we were just on the phone with my mom to have her drive the other car to bring the second set of keys. And I sat down in the driver's seat. My dad, I don't know where he was at the time, and brothers and whatever. I sat down, put my head up, and I saw the keys on the visor just a little part of the keys sticking out. So some good Samaritan saw the keys, found the keys, the only Volvo in the parking lot, put them above the visor, and closed the door and left.
And had left the car unlocked so that you could get in and get the keys.
Yeah. So in the surrender of like, I guess this is where we're at, and we're going to have to wait for help, whatever.
Yeah.
The answer showed up.
Yeah. Because we become more observant.
And it was there all along.
Yes. And when we're busy trying to get out of that space, we can't see what's in it.
Yeah.
So yes, that surrender is really important. And I find that surrender can be a challenge because we are so used to going, oh, but I've got this. And surrender can feel like we're giving up in some way. And it's not that we're really giving up. We're just allowing more. But it's a bit of it's a mental shift that has to happen, because surrender does regularly feel like we're giving up. And we're not. We're just finding something new, which is what you've been talking about.
It's that perspective change, right? And I think maybe that's because I kind of wanted to talk about this too, where I realized I had slipped into an old bad habit, right? Of what I had learned growing up, right? Like it was just a fallback position where you just have to work harder to figure it out. Like you just have to dig in your heels, and you'll get there. And maybe you will, and maybe you won't, but at least you're doing something. So I guess that would have been the mentality that I grew up with, and that I've been trying to like scrape off over the years through my own belief structures and systems. And they can kind of weave themselves back in when you're not paying attention.
Oh, totally. So in the work that I do with my clients, I regularly say, we're not removing any programs or any patterns that you currently have. We're just inserting ones that are more effective and louder. Because some of those older patterns and patterns that we've gone, oh, I want to deconstruct those because I don't want them anymore, they don't actually leave, because they make up who we are. They've contributed to who we are today. So they never completely disappear, but we have more choice about whether we're going to choose them or not. But yes, they reappear because they go, oh, maybe it's my chance to shine again. And then you've just got to have those other alternatives to go, yeah, no, not your turn, my turn. And get those more effective programs and thought patterns and all of that to be louder.
And I think the challenge is some of those beliefs, they're not all bad. Like they had value, and they're maybe misplaced value. Maybe they're just better off in a different place. So once you have the idea, okay, now use that excitement and do
dig
what
the heels in and get the work done. And exactly.
And I've had that. I mean, last January, I think it was last January, when I was doing a bigger workshop. I mean, I couldn't get up early enough, and I couldn't go to bed late enough to but I was excited about the project that I was working on. So it was joyful in the hard work. But I didn't feel like I was really pushing myself. Like it was a joy to do, and I was happy to do it. I didn't feel like I was grinding or trying to push the car and the trailer up a hill. It wasn't necessary.
Even though you were working ridiculous number of hours or getting up super early to do something.
Over that window of time, but it wasn't like months. It was like several weeks of just a lot of hours that needed to be done, and I was happy to do them to get there. So so
that program serves a really good, effective purpose, just not necessarily when it's got to find its right time.
It's not a catch-all. It's not a catch-all. It doesn't work for every situation.
No.
So
and that's what we do default to.
Yeah. So those are and I think that's the what we're trying to work out as we get older is, when to use them, how to use them, and what to use them for. And when they no longer serve us, to put them away, put them back on the shelf or whatever.
And I think you're right that as we get older, I mean, if you think about anyone that we would consider to be wise, they have this presence of not telling you everything you need to know, but just giving you the piece for you to work out, because they've already gone through that process and know that that information isn't needed right now, but this little piece is. But we try to gather everything that we've always done to make it be the solution, when really we've just got to find when that piece of programming or that thought process needs to actually kick in. So yeah, so there we go. You'll be able to utilize those inherited programs once you finish doing, I'm going to go, I won't call it that, I was going to say Dexter style creativity.
I'm kind of feeling a little Dexter-esque at the moment. I don't know. Maybe I'm
Maybe it's left, but
becoming
yeah, and finding that spark, and as soon as you hear that spark or feel that spark or get inspired or see that spark, because we see it. I mean, this is the other thing, isn't it, that I kind of wanted to articulate, is that these ideas can come through in different ways. Often when we hear about ideas, it often assumes that it's a visual or a word, but sometimes it's a feeling. It's like a gut instinct feel. I'm just drawn to this thing. And so, that's the other thing to keep in mind, is to keep an eye out for the ideas that appear in varying ways, and not always the way that you've always received an idea.
Yeah, for sure. Keeping an open mind as to how they might show up. I mean, I'm often talking about noticing what's catching your attention, and not necessarily making a judgment about it, but notice it and then follow that until you've got what you need, or you whatever. It just, maybe that was just enough of a pivot that you would see other things.
Absolutely. So, I had that. So interesting. I wasn't feeling stuck, but I did have that exact thing happen about 2 weeks ago, where I wasn't feeling stuck. This isn't my normal time of year to create anything at all. Like, usually it's April, May. A long story about that. But I don't create new stuff even every 3 years. I usually do it every 5 years. Like, I've got another couple of years up my sleeve before I have to create a new thing. Except apparently now is the time to create something new. So I have, but it came from a conversation with a client who went, "Oh, Chris, I'm really wanting to offer this for my group, and I think we need to call it." And she gave me the words. And it really landed with me. It made me realize how my clients actually see what it is I do for them, rather than me trying to make up what it is I think that I do for them. And just those 2 words has catapulted this new program that's now in creation. It's already created. It's already in motion. And and it wasn't even really my idea. I mean, I've created it. Yes, but it was that spark. It was that actually listening to someone else. It wasn't that I came up with the idea in my head or could see that it was a thing. Someone else said the words.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Something that happens to me often, outside of my shower thoughts, which tend to be the best ones. I'll be listening to something on YouTube or whatever, and I will start to, my mind will wander from the point. It's like, it just got me thinking about one particular aspect or whatever, and then my mind will go off on a tangent. I'll immediately, once I've kind of thought through the idea, I'll pause the thing and I'll email myself the thought. and then even sometimes I'll forward the video. So maybe because that part of that thing was the reason why I went there. So I'll have it together as one piece.
To see how
And
they join and what that might,
yeah, so I
what
call
might
it
come of it.
pieces of the puzzle. So you put the couple pieces on the table, and then maybe it fits up with something later. Like it doesn't have to be a full thing at the moment, but at least it was like that was an interesting idea. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah.
So I'll do that. I heard something just before we got on the call today as I was doing dishes. I was listening to an Abraham Hicks thing, and she's basically just answering a bunch of questions randomly off the internet, basically. And then she basically just stopped and said, all of these are really, most of these questions have really simple answers. How are you feeling before you had the thought? Like, were you on the negative side of things, or were you on the positive side of things? Because if you're on the positive sides of things, follow that inspiration, whatever it was. If it was the negative side of things, and I'm going to paraphrase here, basically you're acting out of fear, and whatever that idea is not the best idea. That's not the impulse. That's the voice in the head, that you should be working harder, pushing whatever, as opposed to, that's a really cool idea. I'm on board with that. Let's go. Like it was a nice distinction for me when I heard that. I was like, it's so simple. It doesn't have to be any harder than that.
And so I think we've got a 3-step thing to get you unstuck. Not necessarily you. The first thing is
I'm writing it all down.
being willing to surrender to the nothingness.
Yeah.
Creating the energy that you actually want to inject in, or the emotion that you want to inject in.
Mm.
And then recognizing whether the idea is coming from a positive feeling or from a negative feeling, and knowing which one to follow. I think that's the 3-step process.
That's pretty good.